Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me ask all three of you, and I ask you to answer quickly a yes or no to the following two questions. If confirmed, do you commit to making yourself available to members of the committee and staff to answer questions and engage with matters of substance in an open and timely fashion?
Yes.
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 There has been a concerning trend under this administration of attacking and retaliating against career public servants, particularly at the State Department. Some have been reassigned based on assumptions about their political affiliation or national origin. Others have been labeled, quote, disloyal. Some have been called out publicly as radical, unelected bureaucrats by senior administration officials. As someone who has spent his entire congressional career doing foreign policy, I cannot think of anything that is more cancerous for the department or career employees across the government. If confirmed, do you commit to making clear to all the employees under your authority that any retaliation, blacklisting, or other prohibited personnel practices will not be tolerated?
I do.
I do.
I do, Senator.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Mahoney, I have a great respect for the Legal Advisor's Office. I'm also impressed by your legal resume. And while you may not seem to be experienced on the issues that will be front and center at your role at State, if confirmed, I suspect you'll be a quick study. So let me ask you a few questions. I understand that when you met with my staff, you emphasized a willingness to engage with the committee, and I appreciate that. I'm submitting for the record a letter I sent to the Secretary last month outlining more than 60 requests that the Department has failed to fully respond to. Many of those were on issues of a legal nature that your office would be involved in. And I want to make clear that this list of outstanding requests is not what engagement looks like, and I expect to hold you to your commitment. Let me flag two issues specifically. First, as you know, the administration has refused for almost a year to provide this committee with copies of all of the agreements, arrangements, and associated documents that it has negotiated with Mexico and the Northern Triangle. There is no legal or policy basis to block Congress or the public from these materials. The administration is simply trying to hide them. So I'm going to continue to pursue this matter, and if confirmed, I would expect you to work with me and my staff to get the documents before the committee. Second, what's your reaction to the fact that the Department has not produced a single document related to the decision to withhold U.S. security assistance to Ukraine, which jeopardized critical funds to counter Kremlin aggression? But the Department quickly handed over thousands of pages related to requests about Vice President Biden and unsupported theories about Ukrainian interference in U.S. elections.
Senator, I obviously wasn't involved in any of those decisions, but I will tell you, I don't think oversight matters ought to be handled in a partisan way. I don't think that the committee or the party affiliation of the chairman should influence how those matters are handled. Now, obviously, as you know from having served in this body and in the House for many years, disagreements between the executive and legislative branches on document production are not infrequent. But I can give you my commitment that to the extent I'm involved in these matters, I will do so in an even-handed way. I will try to work with you and your staff in good faith to reach accommodations that get you the information that you need to perform your important policy and oversight work.
Okay, I understand. I appreciate that answer. I understand that there's always disagreements, but these are 60 requests of this committee, longstanding. Do you think it's appropriate executive branch responsiveness to Congress to deny virtually on all occasions the request for documents and information?
Senator, I'm not, because I haven't been involved in this, I don't want to characterize the position. Now, what you just said, is it appropriate to reflexively deny all requests? No, that isn't appropriate, and that's not my, that would not be the tack that I would take.
Let me ask you this. Do you commit to review any future release of documents where the Department intends to hand over documents to one party but not the other?
Senator, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So we have had situations where it seems that one party can get documents from the Department, but another party cannot. Do you commit to review any future release of documents where the Department intends to hand over the documents to one party, but not the other?
Yes, Senator, I commit to handling all of these things in an even-handed fashion without regard to party.
Well, something is clearly amiss, because responsiveness to Congress means all of Congress, not one party, not just certain chairmen, and not just the president's chosen political narratives. As legal advisor under the Secretary, you'll be on the hook to make sure that the State Department is not weaponized in support of the president's reelection more than it has already been. And I hope that you will be up to that task. As is well documented, Secretary Pompeo played a key role in the Trump-Ukraine scandal, including listening in on the infamous quid pro quo call between Trump and President Zelensky. More recently, the Secretary was involved in the firing of State Department Inspector General Linick. At the time of the firing, the Secretary was under investigation by the Inspector General. Despite his personal involvement in each of those episodes, the Secretary did not recuse himself from congressional investigations into these matters. Does that comport with your view of good government?
Senator, the question of whether recusals are merited is obviously fact-specific. I'm aware of both of those instances. I understand your interest in them, and my view is that going forward, we should work with the Congress to try to get you answers to your questions to the extent that that is possible in a manner that's consistent with department policy and due respect for executive branch equities.
I'm not even asking you for a legal opinion. I'm asking for a common sense perspective. Isn't sometimes the appearance of conflict equally as important as a conflict itself?
I would agree with that, Senator. I think you always have to be concerned with the appearance of conflict in any situation where judgments might be called into question.
Let me ask you this. The role of legal advisor is somewhat unique in our government. If confirmed, you'll not just be the general counsel for the State Department, you'll also be the chief international legal diplomat for the United States. I'm interested in how you plan to approach this second role, which requires respect for both domestic and international law, as well as for the rule of law generally. What will be your priorities in this area, and how do you expect to accomplish them given the reality of a president that, from my perspective, subverts the rule of law at home and abroad in the light of the way we've engaged with the rest of the world and what we're seeing happening in Portland and other places? How do you envision your ability to deal in that reality, and what are going to be your priorities in this regard?
Senator, I think it's very important that the United States adhere to its international law obligations. That is one of the key tasks of the legal advisor, and that's something that I would take quite seriously. There are a number of issues that the office is dealing with right now with regard to a number of human rights issues with regard to China, for example, as well as implementing recent legislation on Hong Kong. That would be a priority for me. There are ongoing discussions about the law of about international law as it applies to space as well as to cyber. That's something else that I would be interested in. But Senator, the most important thing, as I see it, for the legal advisor to do is to offer honest professional advice on all of the topics that reach the Secretary, and that, for me, will be my first and foremost priority.
And then finally, Mr. Chairman, I don't have any idea what my time is. This keeps moving around, so it's been I'm
real benefit for you.
I'm really appreciative of you continuously giving me 5 minutes.
Just part of the chairman's generosity.
To my colleagues, I'll just finish with Mr. Mahoney on this line of questions, and then I'll reserve my questions for the other candidates when everyone else goes through. I'd like to get a series of commitments from you, if I can, Mr. Mahoney, and either a yes or no will do. If you're confirmed, do you commit not to influence, interfere with, or seek to stop any ongoing Inspector General investigation into the Department of the Secretary?
Yes, I commit to that.
Do you commit to give your best objective legal advice as informed by the facts and the law, independent of political electoral consequences?
Absolutely, Senator.
Do you commit to do so even if it puts you at odds with the Secretary or the President?
Senator, I think that that's the duty of every attorney, yes.
Do you commit to formally recommend against taking any action that you believe will violate the law, even if it means disagreeing with the President or the Secretary?
Yes.
If you're in such a moment, I hope you're not, but if you're in such a moment, will you write a memo outlining your objection?
Senator, I don't want to speculate on exactly how I would handle that situation, but I'm not going to do anything that I think is illegal. I'm not going to do anything that is immoral. I believe that I can serve well and honorably in this position, and that's what I intend to do.
Do you commit to report to proper authorities, including the FBI, Inspector General, and Congress, any credible allegations of foreign interference in U.S. elections?
Yes.
And finally, do you commit to report to proper authorities, including the FBI Inspector General and Congress, any attempts by foreign or private individuals to improperly influence U.S. foreign policy, particularly if you have reason to believe those efforts are adverse to U.S. interests?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your answers.